During medieval times, medicine was very different than it is today. Sick people couldn't walk into a doctor's office or a pharmacy to cure what was ailing them. Patients were just as likely to die from the treatment of their illness as the illness itself. Medieval times weren't like it is today either. They used weird, strange medical techniques. This video will discuss the grossest and weirdest medieval medicines used in the past. Welcome to Crazy Histories, where we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history. Some of the things discussed in this video may be offensive or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Human waste and bodies were used by doctors to treat disease. As unbelievable as it sounds, medieval physicians used animal feces to treat illnesses in medieval times. Medieval medics could use animal wastes to treat many different ailments depending on the animal the dung came from. Donkey, dog, and fly dung are some examples of animal feces used during this time. Greek white was a standard medicine doctors prescribed to treat sore throats in medieval times. Greek white was the white exterior of a dog's feces which patients swallowed to cure throat and lung ailments. The doctors also applied Greek white topically to help shrink the size of tumors. Dung from an ox helped to reduce fever, while feces from a sheep got rid of jaundice. Sometimes a doctor would prescribe dung from an exotic animal like an elephant or alligator, but the pharmacist usually only had dog feces on hand. Unsurprisingly, the use of waste to treat illnesses also led to infections such as tetanus. Scientists today, though, have stated that feces does have an antibiotic property. Citizens from medieval times also used feces to ward off ghosts and the evil spirits. Since urine is sterile, soldiers on medieval battlefields used it as an antiseptic to clean each other's wounds. The soldiers would openly urinate on each other to flush out an injury. Medieval doctors used sterile urine on burns and insect bites too. Some women from medieval times used their urine to prep their face and skin for beauty treatments. Parents used urine mixed with ash to treat a baby's diaper rash. Not only did doctors in the medieval era use urine as medicine, but they also used it to diagnose different illnesses. Doctors had a urine chart where they would compare the color of the urine to attempt to diagnose a disease. Disgustingly, the doctors would sniff and even taste the urine to try and analyze it. Don't laugh too hard. Urine is still used in many medical creams today. In medieval times, physicians used ground-up bones to treat ailments. The practice of using powdered bone as medicine wasn't solely used by medieval doctors. Many countries used it. Ancient Egyptians were known to use powdered mummies for medical purposes, and Romans drank the blood and ate the organs of dead soldiers. Romans did this because they believed the deceased spirit would enter their body. Doctors prescribed poisonous toxins as medicines. After executions in medieval times, the executioner would render the fat from the executed bodies. The rendered fat, axon hominis, was found on the shelves of local pharmacies. Patients used the human fat to rub on painful joints. They also made into slaves and treated gout with it. A particular type of moss common to graveyards was a common ingredient in powdered bone medicines and fat lotions. Even though body parts aren't used in treatment today, the specialty moss still is. Today, mercury is known for its poisonous properties, but in medieval times, doctors used it to treat ailments and as a glaze for pottery. For decades before the medieval era, mercury had gained a reputation. Ancient Greeks and Chinese believed mercury could lengthen one's lifespan. Medieval physicians also boasted that if their patients were to consume mercury in large amounts, not only would they live forever, but they would be able to walk on water. The Emperor of China, King Shi Huan, died from drinking too much mercury in an attempt for eternal life. Mercury poison was a common side effect in medieval medicine. Even if the mercury happened to heal their illness, their liver and kidneys would be too damaged for them to survive. Doctors used mercury to treat diseases like syphilis and chlamydia into the 20th century. Disgusting and painful, from bone knitting to boar enemas. One of the more disgusting medical practices on this list is the boar bile enemas given during medieval times. A clyster, a long metal pipe with a fluid-filled cup at the end of the tube, was used for enemas. Whoever performed the enema would insert the line into the patient's anus and pump to release the fluid into the colon. Some spas still give enemas today, but the liquid is usually a warm, soapy substance instead of boar bile. Garlic was a prominent herb featured in medieval medicine. The Black Plague spread rampantly during the medieval times. Physicians were at a loss and had no idea how to overcome this illness, which was killing thousands of people around Europe. An ancient remedy of applying a garlic clove to an open wound gained popularity during the time of the Black Plague. Another popular remedy during the medieval era was bull's eye salve. Bull's eye salve was an ointment used by doctors on patients' eyes. The salve's ingredients were garlic, onions, and other spices and herbs. Ball's Leech Book, a medieval medicine cookbook, is where the physicians found the recipe. The combination of ingredients used in Ball's eye salve is known to fight against the dangerous infection MRSA. Bloodletting and trephination are still common today. The diagnosis for many illnesses during medieval times was bloodletting. Bloodletting means relieving the body of bad blood or too much blood causing the infection. Physicians would then alleviate the body of the blood buildup by cutting a vein or artery. Sometimes physicians also used leeches to suck the blood out of patients. As weird as it sounds, doctors used bloodletting, known as phlebotomy, until the late 19th century. Bleeding out was a significant side effect of the practice. Medieval physicians prescribed the draining of one's blood for a variety of illnesses. Barbershops even listed the service on their menu of services. Since bloodletting had more negative side effects than positive, the practice eventually stopped. However, doctors still use leeches and controlled blood draining today. Trephination is the practice of drilling a hole into the bone to relieve pressure. Medieval doctors were not the first to practice trephination. This gruesome surgery goes back 7,000 years. The origins of trephination are unknown, but historians believe ancient doctors drilled holes to release evil spirits that affected a sick person. The doctors may have also used it to treat blood clots and head injuries. Cataract surgery, deadly anesthetics, and cataracts. Cataracts are the buildup of protein in the eye, which then causes hazy vision. A doctor would treat cataracts by performing surgery using a big, thick needle. The doctor would push the cornea behind the eye and dig out the cataracts during the surgery. A barber was the doctor or the one who commonly performed these surgeries. The reason why the red and white swirling signs out of barbershops are those colors: the red represents the blood from the bloodletting and surgeries. The white represents the band used to cover the bloody wound. In medicine, anesthesia is a relatively new practice. It's only about 150 years old. During the medieval era, surgeons used a mixture of herbs and alcohol to seduce the patient. The name of the herb and alcohol mixture most popular during medieval times was dwale. Dwale's ingredients included lettuce and the highly toxic opium and hemlock. Since no one knew the proper dosage of this mixture to give the patient, many patients died not from the surgery or infection, but from the anesthetic used to sedate them. When someone gets diagnosed with an infection of the bladder, a doctor would have to insert a catheter. Doctors would shove the catheter, a long metal pole, up the urethra to clear the blockage. Patients were awake for this painful procedure, and historians say several people would have to hold someone down while the doctor inserted it. Cauterizing wounds and hemorrhoids. Battlefield surgeons used cauterization to stop the bleeding after a soldier had a limb cut off or surgically amputated. Doctors also used cauterization for minor wounds. Although cauterizing a wound is effective at stopping the bleeding, it was also known to increase the risk of infection. A doctor would put a poker straight from the fire into an injury to prevent internal bleeding. Since cauterization successfully stopped bleeding on the battlefield, doctors began to use it to treat hemorrhoids. Medieval physicians would insert a red-hot poker into the patient's anus. If that didn't heal the patient of hemorrhoids, the doctor told them to sit on St. Fiacre's rock. Allegedly, the saint sat there until the rock cured him of his hemorrhoids. During medieval times, hemorrhoids were referred to as St. Fiacre's illness. Medicine during medieval times was dangerous, and sometimes people today forgot how lucky they are to have the treatment we do. What's impressive, though, is that many of the things doctors use today to treat disease and infections come from the doctors during medieval times. Even though the medieval physicians may not have had everything right, they were definitely onto something with some of their surgeries. If you enjoyed this video about the sad truth about the weirdest medieval medicine, click the like and subscribe button for more Crazy History stories where we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history.